First up on deck, Mike Roman and Nicole McMurray have become really great friends and great collaborative partners. I will say that if collaboration, spirit of collaboration and professionalism and a whole lot of humor, these two are actually that. So it's my pleasure just to bring up Mike Roman and Nicole McMurray.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Very good.
This thing is on, my mic? Yep. Is it on? Okay. It's exciting.
Testing. 1, 2,
it's like,
right.
there we go.
I'm Michael Roman. I've been with ADP for 15 years now. Anyone heard of us? Probably, maybe, somehow. Yeah, we started the idea of doing some outsourced payroll. Moved into human capital, which I think is a lot more interesting, and we're going to get into the reasons why. But we really are focused on trying to help companies manage their people side of it, and we work very well with partners like Nicole.
So I'm Nicole McMurray. I've been with Apple One in March. It'll be 14 years. And I run the Orlando market. And my job is to have great people and great companies meet. And it's my passion. It's what I love to do. And I get to share a little bit of what I do with you today. So thanks for having me.
I know. Thanks for having us. And what we're going to talk to you about today is something that I think is in front of a lot of people's minds, but it doesn't get the attention that I think it deserves. And I'll ask one of our colleagues here in a little while to explain why. It's people and culture. Businesses always have to have a lot of employees, but how do you get them? How do you find them? How do you retain them? How do you get the most out of them and make them as happy as they can be? Well, you've got to develop the right culture. We're here to explain to you a little bit about how we got where we are today, and then going to go through an exercise to help you kind of think about that critically about your company. So what we've seen over time is really a change in the way business is done. If we think about I just got done listening to a book. It was at the turn of the century, actually in the Gilded Age they called it. It was about Westinghouse and Edison and how they competed to who created the light bulb. It's called The End of Night. I think it's The Last Days of Night. So those were older businesses. Manufacturing there was pretty simple. The more people they had, the more they got out of them, the more work they could do. What we've seen over the past 20 years even has been a dramatic difference. And it's been because of these factors. We've seen changing political and economic conditions. I think we can all agree in the past 10 years. There's so many changes taking place, local, regional, national, international levels, from political shifts to economic changes to the globalization of the marketplace. It's made us all have to work and think differently about business. Digital. I'll go back to the Last Days of Night. They were still doing plans in hand. They were going through massive. Whenever Edison would go through, he went through more than I think 1,100 permutations of certain types of filament, and even 12,000 other permutations of the bulb. He had to do that physically. These days, digital. He can do all that. You can model it. We have some of that going on here in Central Florida, the modeling and simulation industry. So we're seeing a lot of the change. We're all having to adapt to that. Workforce. Your employees today, and I think Nicole will point to this as well, they expect to be able to do things outside the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything's changing. We are in an employee-led marketplace right now, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but these are the discussions that we're having with our clients. The world is changing, and we just need to be aware and embrace it.
Yeah, we've heard the reference to the gig economy. So it's individuals who have part-time gigs, Uber, Lyft, others. How many businesses will not only employ full-timers but also have contract workers, 1099s, outsource vendors for certain things? You got him? Yeah. We all have them. We have them at ADP. We'll have individuals that we used to have service centers where they would all be located in one place. Then we went to home shoring, and now we're doing a hybrid. We have a big service center in Maitland, but we have tons of individuals home shored. Why? That may be how we get the best talent in some areas. So you have to adapt to that as a business. And then changing talent demands, not just where they work, how you communicate with them. And that actually gets into the cultural piece, really. The expectations truly are that you're going to adapt to what they need. But why do you have to adapt? Well, there are less workers out there. This is one of many charts we have. It shows in 2015 I think this is the pointer. Number of open positions exceed new hires. That is why unemployment is at 4%, but it isn't really.
Yeah, so unemployment right now, the latest statistics we just got this week, it's at 4.1%, but for degreed individuals, it's 2.8%.
So that means that there are less individuals out there. And if you really think about it, if you think about the 4.1 or the 2.8, you can probably take off part of that, maybe a percentage point, due to individuals that may not be in the world, or they may not be qualified for certain jobs. The message is you're having to compete for every new employee against another company. You are having to take them from somewhere else. Chances are they are not in the marketplace. One of the accounts I work with is in medical. RNs for if an RN applies for one job, they have 7 other jobs they can apply for. LPNs, I think it's 1 to 12. They have choices. It's not like it was I'll go back to Westinghouse and Edison, where, hey, if you want to work for me, you got to come work for me and on my terms. It's been flipped. Employees now are dictating the terms by which they work and what they do, types of jobs, how they paid, how they're dealt with. If you're not focused on a business, you've fallen behind, and that's where culture comes in. This didn't come out fully, but this is a Deloitte & Touche survey. They put in here, we talk about what's most important. What are the top concerns of business leaders? I would say that all of these, careers, talent, employee experience, performance, leadership, all those things, that's all culture. That's all routed in culture. Culture is this thing that we can't really define.
You love to use the word nebulous.
Yes.
That's your big word that
I
I
do.
just learned from Mike.
Yeah, it's a situation where you have to understand the employee, and that understanding is changing on a daily basis. Through multi-generations, we've got millennials all the way to baby boomers, even Gen Xers, Gen Y. They are. And, as you go through this transition, you have to understand what's important to them. So that's, I think, a really critical thing. So that's the landscape of what we're in. Business has changed. You can't operate the way you used to. You've got to understand the political dynamic, understand what the employees and the workers are demanding, understand the role of technology and how that plays into your business, but also towards the employees and the importance of something like culture.
Yeah. Can I take this over? Thank you. Hey, little buddy. So I was talking to our CEO, Janice Bryant-Howroyd. I was just with her at a management meeting, and I asked her the message that she would deliver to CEOs or leaders of companies. And the thing that we talk about the most at Apple One is that you matter. You absolutely matter. If you're in this room, if you're learning, if you're leading, you have been gifted with this amazing responsibility and burden and an overall idea to move the culture and to embrace your organization and to move it forward, to make it a place where people want to work. I heard a sermon one time, and he was talking about raising children, and he said at 18, when your children pull in your driveway, it's because they want to. And so we want to create an environment where people want to come to work every day, where they want to stay. These buzzwords, stay culture, engagement, all of these different things that we're learning and hearing, they're so important to how we're going to grow as an organization. So my VPs in the room, we just ran a managers meeting for all of our leaders, and we based it off the book Great by Choice by Jim Collins. And it's such an excellent book. I would highly recommend reading it. But I love what he says here, because he says people are creative, people are productively paranoid, people lead, people build teams, people build organizations, people build culture. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? People exemplify values, pursue purpose, and achieve big, hairy, audacious goals. Of all the luck we can get, people luck, the luck of finding a great mentor, partner, teammate, leader, friend is the most important. He talks in the book about return on luck, and we all get chances to meet people, and luck hits us every once in a while. It's what you do with that luck that makes it important. So just yesterday, I was coaching somebody, a new manager out of California, and she's having an issue with culture and development, and that's what I do a lot for Apple One, among the other things that I do. And she said, I'm telling people to be excited, I'm showing them, and no one's listening. And I said, you are so adorable. you think that when you say something, people are going to listen to you. I love that. That is just so great. And you don't have children, do you? And she didn't. She had a cat. And so I just, yeah, what was it? Yeah, that's the thing. Cats don't listen either, right? But she had this idea in her mind that she would just say something and it would happen. And we all know that it is intentional. Culture is something that we develop and grow, and we show and we tell, and it's beautiful when it works. And so my goal today is just to ask you some questions. They're going to be in your book too, but if your heart even flickers, if you even think, I need to work on that, then please write it down and let's create a plan. My team interviews 300 to 500 people a month. And we hear the stories of what is going on in our marketplace. We know that there are companies that are not getting this right because they're coming to us for help. And so if you can get it right, then we are so excited and we are so grateful. And the fact that you're here is step one. Is talent acquisition a laser focus for your organization? Are you methodical and consistent to your approach in recruiting? Okay, that's going to be something that's really important as we look at the marketplace, as we hear unemployment. We need to be, if we can, having lunch, interviewing our competitors, having a plan to be consistently focused on recruiting, to shoot that, to be productively paranoid, to know that somebody could leave your organization at any minute, and do we have the pipeline coming in to be able to work alongside of that? Then there's another one on here. Are you building a culture of continuous learning, adaptability, growth, and personal development? Do your people know that they matter? You know, we talked about in the olden days, it was this is your job and you come to work every day and you're expected to work and you go home. But do your people know that they matter to you? That's, as we hear this word culture and it's so nebulous and it's so big, how do we define it? And I think sometimes we can define things by asking ourselves if they exist in our organization. Is your company designed with the employee engagement as a function of your employee experience? And do you assess this? Are you assessing job fit, manager impact, culture, team dynamics? When somebody walks into your organization on day one, I know we do this at my company, when you sit down and you start with us, we tell you, welcome to your $100,000 opportunity. We're so excited you're here. We want to walk you immediately through the career path that you have in front of you. Whether you take it or not, we want to let you know that we care. And so are we doing these things as an organization on day one to say, this is where you can go, this is what it looks like if you stay with me, grow old with me? In my industry, the turnover percentage is 65 to 70%. It's insane. Nobody wants to do what we do. I have people with me 16 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. There's a reason behind it. It's because we've created it and it's intentional.
And let me ask
yes,
you there.
please.
So once again, you think about us, we're a technology company, payroll, HR, we do all the systems. So really, where does that come in? I can tell you in the past 14 years I've been working, I've never seen anything grow as fast as this part. Having design, making sure the employee experience is better. That's what it is all about. And it can't just be a one-on-one. It's got to be relayed and deployed multiple times and through multiple channels. Your managers have to do it. You have to have the right technology and the process to do it. It's important that you continually reinforce it because everybody's so busy. We're so busy, and if your employees don't know on a day-to-day basis, in some way, some shape, some form, that you make it easy for them to get what they need out of you, but also that you care about them in some way, they will leave. We've got ADP did a study, the companies, employees, and you've seen the same numbers. Employees, if other things are equal, if they get a job offer and one job offer is made maybe 10% less, but the other company that's paying them a little bit less, they feel like they're part of something, they have the right tools to do the job, they know they can be successful, they have a path for growth and development, they will take the job that pays them less money because the other company has a more well-rounded package of information. It helps them, it cares about them as a whole, not just as a piece or a cog in the wheel. So.
And I love when we talk about assessing job fit too. Sometimes our people just might not be in the right roles, and that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be a part of our company. And so evaluating that as well and assessing employee engagement. We have Ray in the room. If you guys don't know Ray yet, please get to know him. This is what he does, and I just referred a client to him that's asking these questions. How do we make sure that people are in the right roles, doing the right things to move our mission forward? And are we building a management team that engages and empowers employees? I don't know if that exists in your organization, but if not, there's a lot of work and a lot of room to make this better. And then are we leveraging technology to design and improve the workplace? What does that mean? I invited Evelyn just a couple of weeks ago. I had lunch with the CEO of J. Raymond Construction, and it's a $160 million company. We're sitting at lunch, and I'm just learning about the organization. And at the end, we were walking out, and I said, I just want to thank you. You have created a company where people love to work, and I'm so excited that there's people like you in the world. I even paid for his lunch, which I normally do. But it was just, it was such a refreshing time. And then he introduced me to Evelyn, and I got to have lunch with her and just learning about what she does. She's in charge of HR, but I think so many times we position HR as just a position within our company. And I was so impressed with what she does, the seat that she has at the table, how she's helping the company grow. So I asked her to be here so she can just share. And she told me a story about technology. And so I would ask you to share that of how, when used correctly, it can move an organization forward. So.
Prior to becoming on board, well, I'd like to preface by saying that I am so blessed to work for the CEO that I get to work for, because I think being in HR and working for different industries and for different corporations throughout my career, this is the first time that I've worked for somebody whose vision of organizational success, it transcends, financial profitability. It also includes, creating a workplace where employees are happy to work, and that they can also achieve personal growth and success, with us during our journey together. So one of the things that he did prior to me coming on board is he worked with our IT manager, and they wanted to revamp our performance review management system. And most of you probably have a performance review system hopefully in place in your companies, but in construction, it's not always the norm. It's actually, I think statistically, maybe 30% of construction companies have a performance review conversation with their employees. So he's been doing it since 1989, just like a paper review checklist type of review. And he wanted to do something a little more grand, something with technology. So he had our IT manager go out and find a software that we could utilize that would help improve our employee engagement process and also utilize technology, because we are very driven in that area in our company. But of course, it was our IT manager. So he did find a great software, and he customized it the way he thought it should be, and it was wrong. So when they hired me, my first task was to take that great software, that great platform that has absolutely improved our engagement process, and make it HR friendly. Bring in the meat and potatoes of what the employees need to see and need to work on in order to improve their performance and feel successful. It's very goal centered. It's not just you pass, you fail. No, it's encouraging them to stretch themselves and develop goals that are going to improve not only their performance but also their experience. So that was really great, and that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't deliberate in trying to create this culture and trying to improve the experience of the employees, and having that always on the forefront of all our business decisions are always centered around what's going to help our employees and make them happy. So
I love that. And it's amazing. So we can see that we can buy technology, and I think a lot of times that's a solution. We purchase something and we think that will make a difference in creating culture or enhancing culture. But if you don't have an Evelyn, or you're not the Evelyn behind what you do, then you won't be able to see the full ROI on that. And so we're going to get more involved in that in our breakout session, but I just wanted to highlight that. And then, do you have the people to believe and push your vision forward? Are they aligned with your leadership vision? And who's going to champion and advocate that message for you? If that's you, are we doing the greatest job that we can? If you have an Evelyn on your team, if you have people on your team, what are you doing to align them with that message to have a seat at the table? And so just one other thing I asked her to highlight today was, John's moving towards retirement now, and you've been actively involved in the succession transition. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too, and your involvement.
well, you guys will all agree that is the number one biggest task an organization will undertake is developing their succession plan. And of course, we've been in business for about 30 years, and I have so many employees that are so loyal to the company, but really they're loyal to my boss. That's where that is. So deliberately creating a succession plan that's going to probably take us about 5 years to implement fully. Making sure that we're communicating with them consistently, making sure that the people that are going to be stepping up into those roles of leadership are people that embody the same vision and values that John and his partners have instilled since the very beginning of the company has been paramount. So just, you know, it has to be done right, because our goal is that J. Raymond is in business for another 30 years easily and into the future. And I think that the fact that that this really paramount business decision is taken into account our employees and their longevity, I think it's probably going to be the key of our success.
I love that. And when I was talking to John, you know, it's just teaching his managers too, when you're at a company function, walk up and hug the kids and figure out how they're doing. And so it's just things like that as we talk about culture and the transition of culture. Those are so important if we want our organization to grow, if we want people to pull in the driveway because it's their choice. I don't know if there we go, okay. So this is just a slide. We talk a lot. Eric was going to be here from Strategic Partners to talk about benefits and what the new benefits look like. And so when we hear benefits, we think 401k, medical. The things that our candidates are excited about now are flex time, and it's really looking at wellness programs, financial wellness, caring about the whole person. And you can see again, it's coming up, the work itself. So job fit, assessing that's on there. Company culture, again, it keeps coming up, it's this buzzword, but how do we define it? So one of the things that we're really passionate about when I add talent to an organization is to make sure that they're gonna stay. We wanna create that stay culture, it's so important. Nobody likes the process of hiring. I haven't met a person yet that really loves it, and that's great job stability for me. I don't know if any of you in the room love placing an ad or interviewing candidates, and it's a lot. And so we get people in the door, and then we think that that's it. So an engagement program, when we're working with you, and these are in your book, but there's just 7 easy steps to just really take into account. You have to get to know your people. Find out what makes them tick, what's important to them. When we're creating an engagement plan, we want to make sure that it reinforces the company's goals and priorities. We don't just create an engagement plan because we buy you lunch every day because we're excited to hang out in the conference room. We want to make sure that the end is in mind, that it's proportional to the achievement. If somebody does something spectacular, a $5 Starbucks gift card, I don't know. Is that really going to send your message that you matter and thank you for what you've done for my organization? Or do we have to do a little bit more? Timely in presentation, that's your job, or if you have a team that you're running, this is their job to make sure it's not, hey, last month, didn't you do something awesome? I was super pumped about that. Appreciate you, bud. It's timely in the moment. We are training a puppy right now, and when he misbehaves, we say it right then. We don't have a one-on-one with our puppy that you peed on our carpet 8 times. So timely. Visible to others, that's going to be really important. Sincere gratitude expressed. I can't say that enough. The intention and sincerity behind something is so important. If you lack that, find somebody on your team that can deliver that message. Specific details of the achievement given. We say at Apple One that adjectives don't close deals, data does. So if you've done something and I say, she was spectacular, awesome, totally great, best day ever, really excited she did that, I'm not really setting a level of achievement for you to accomplish. If I tell a story that Stephanie processed payroll for 222 people during a hurricane, it was over $300,000 in billing and she didn't make one error, I feel like that's a pretty impressive goal, right? And then personalized to the priorities of the individual, making sure that you understand what's important to your people. Stephanie on my team in the back, she loves cats. I still hired her. And the other day, if you have a cat, it's okay. But the other day, she did something just really awesome, and I ordered her a purse that looks like a cat. I would never wear it, but for her, she would love it, and it was personalized. I am Italian. I did something great for my boss a couple years ago. Oh, there's the cat purse. Thank you, Lauren. So cute. I did something great for my boss, and he sent me a whole thing of salami to my house. And so Lauren wouldn't like salami, but for me, that was pretty awesome. I was really excited about that. I was swollen for a week, but it was personalized. It was intentional. And I just really appreciated that level, right? And so I could never do this job without Lauren, who's with me every single day, without Stephanie. And I know we know these things, but do our people know them? And then just lastly, again, we hear the word engagement, and then how do we get started? We just really encourage you as leaders in the room to set SMART goals, right, with your people to make sure that it's aligned. And SMART just means specific and strategic, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time frame. So I can't just say, I want to do this. It's, I want to do this with you. Let's talk about how we can get there together. And then I want to reward you in a way that will show you that I love you and that I care. And then we'll really bring through this together. I think that's.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes. So people are important. We all agree. Everyone thinks that, and once again, what was most impressive about your construction company is that I haven't seen or heard of that level of commitment to culture, to people, to reviews, to structure in that industry and a lot of other companies. You'll see a lot of construction companies, and I do work with a number of them. It could be HVAC, plumbing, concrete, whatever. There's so many electrical. I haven't seen them catching up yet. You guys are obviously ahead of the curve. You're really far ahead of the curve, and it's important because that, I think, is one of the areas one industry needs to catch up because those workers are incredibly high demand. One of my neighbors runs a construction company. I live out in the Laureate Park area. He runs a construction company. And we were just having a talk, and I said, how are you doing on finding people for the new job? Because it's very hard to find people to do our jobs and even expand the business. So why? He goes, well, some of the jobs I have, I'd love to get someone in, but they can go get paid $25 an hour to wave a flag on I-4 as part of the I-4 Ultimate Project. He goes, I can't compete with that wage. I can't do it, because I can't afford to pay that much. And it actually goes back to what we saw with the recent tax legislation. So legislation comes out, businesses' tax rate's gonna drop significantly for some businesses. Whether it does or not, to me, is irrelevant because the response from the marketplace was, what did Disney do? $1,000, raise benefits. What did Bank of America do? What did AT&T do? $1,000, increased paternity leave, additional training. As small and mid-sized businesses, you need to understand that. Because what's happened is whether or not you get money back, it's irrelevant. All job candidates now, and even all your internal employees are now looking, going, well, they got a $1,000 bonus. Someone else got a week's extra vacation. What am I gonna do? Mid-market doesn't often have the width, or the bandwidth, or the resources to respond. The way you respond, though, can be by increasing the cultural aspects of the business. You don't have to spend money on a software. What you have to do is be intentional with it. Put a plan together. Solve Nicole, if you have any questions, ask us about it. There are things you can do to increase the value of being an employee of your company without putting a dollar into it, into your employees. Look, if you can, great, do it. But you've got to find a way to focus on that piece of culture and focus on that part of the business. So I got some clients who would probably love to talk to you about what you did.
Yeah.
The challenge, though, is how do you get there? How do you know where you have to go? The only way you know is you have to see where you are. Mm-hmm. So we're going to make this available to everybody. ADP had a partnership with a company called the Hackett Group, international consulting firm. It costs you nothing. They do a benchmark survey. Daryl did it for us. Thank you, Daryl, earlier in the week. And the focus is to go through some questions, which we're going to do part of the exercise today, to help you understand where you are as far as what your current structure is, where HR is. Because if you don't get the basics right of the business, it's hard to focus on culture. If you don't have the basic systems and processes in place, and you don't have HR valued correctly or aligned correctly with your executives, like you are with your executives, you're going to be all over the place, just like the individual who bought the software, but when you came in, we don't know what we're doing. We're not doing the right thing. So we're going to use our benchmark process. Hackett's Group, International, they do about 13,000 of these surveys a year. They're a management consulting company. Once again, it's not commercial. I'm just validating and telling you why we picked who we did at ADP to partner with. The idea is it gives you ideas on best practices. So like I said, we're going to go through some of it here, and I'll walk through it in a second. But Daryl, I want to ask you, you went through it. I mean, kind of, we talk a little. Tell me what your thoughts were.
It was a real wake-up call. I've been in operations and worked on strategic plans for over 35 years and had never really thought about specifically HR, and by the way, been in recruiting and staffing and stuff like that, but to actually look at human resources as part of, up in the top or up in the C-suite, if you will, of your strategic plan, just had never really thought of it as that, because it was more of a utility, it was a function that had to be done, it was compliance. It's gotten much more difficult for HR executives to do their jobs based on all the expanding responsibilities. But it really called out the fact that I had really not pulled it up to the highest level that I needed to from a strategic plan standpoint.
Yeah, and that's the intent. I mean, that really is the intent, because we've got, if you have someone like an Evelyn on your bench and you're not using her and using with the knowledge you have, or maybe you don't have, or as lucky as to have someone like Evelyn on your bench, got to find someone. But if they are using them, you got to get them to the table. They are the ones who are going to help enable growth of the company.
And no one's allowed to recruit Evelyn after this. Okay, that's the deal.
Sounds
That's,
like sorry,
we love
sorry,
her. No,
sorry,
no.
sorry.
And we don't know where you are in the room. You know, we know their story and we love their story, but I'm sure there's so many other stories in here when we talk about culture. Neil works with Moe's. The second I walk in, I feel really welcome when I walk into Moe's, and I appreciate that, right? And so I don't know where you are in the room, and we'll begin to talk through that. But again, if you have any stories or examples, we're going to do our breakout sessions. We are excited to hear about
Yeah, and that's where it's going to come out. So this one is actually pretty simple. So we're going to do 5 questions, and these are all in the book. So we're going to ask you what describes the strategy and goals for the HR function, right? You have a strategy. These aren't out of order. You have a strategy. I think the first one actually should be in there. Did it go through? Yeah, we lost some of the slides.
Yep. I have the book right here for you, Mike.
Here, let me pull the book.
Yeah.
So the first one you're going to have is,
There you go.
there we go, the first 2. There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, it says honestly answer these questions. So you'll have, let me try to get the right ones. Here.
Yeah, we're going to start working through these.
Honestly answer these questions. These will be the 5 you're going to answer. We're going to do it in the breakout group. All right? But I just want you to see them. What are the areas of rank by importance where your team currently spends its time and effort? Should be page number.
I don't know if there's
Yeah,
page.
yeah, right there.
It's right next to your cost and productivity slide. So there's that first question. It says, honestly answer these questions.
Right. We're going to ask you where your HR people are currently spending their time. So what we're going to do is we're going to have, when we break out into the groups, we're going to have a leader. We're basically going to have everyone rank these 1 to 5 for each of your companies, and we're going to collate for each group and understand where everyone spent. So where your HR people are spending their time today. The next one is, same question, where would you as an executive like them to spend their time?
And if it's you, right, if you're in the HR function, then
Right.
please rank yourself.
Or where do you think the company should be spending its time?
Right.
The delta here will often be, I have spent a lot of my time on technical aspects. I gotta move data in our payroll HR systems. I'd really rather focus on talent because you know how important it is. So this is the alignment with executives. Then you'll go through what's the strategy. We're not gonna get into specifics. You have a strategy or you don't have one. Unfortunately, we see some of the other. You have goals, you have stated goals. Once again, we want to understand if you have stated goals, and this is going to generate conversation. You know, what are the goals? How did you come up with those goals? Was HR involved in the creation of the goals from the C-suite level? And the last one is, do you use some sort of engagement or an engagement study, a stay survey?
Yeah. So I was just meeting with the Chief Administration Officer. One of the things we're helping our clients with are stay interviews. So what does that mean? Evaluating performance after 30 days. We hired you. Is this job exactly what you thought it was? What can we help you with? What are you not getting? Who's really helping you? And then we implemented a 60, 90 day, and then we move it on from there depending on what our clients would like to have from an employee engagement standpoint. But it just lets people know we have our finger on the pulse of the job fit and caring for them.
So you go through those 5, and then you'll see this. What we're going to do is literally for each one, you can do it in each page in your book. Mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which is most important? We'll collate, then we'll say, all right. And for group number 1, we came out and we say we do have my company has stated goals. We have limited linkage between goals and our strategic plan. Okay, great. 3, you picked that. Let's talk more about that. What is it? What do you mean they're limited? Are there certain areas you're not covering? What do you think could be done better? How do you think that's impacting the business? And our facilitators will talk about that. We'll come up with a couple of those best practice ideas, some results in best practice, and we'll come out and share it with the group. We probably have
Yes.
What's the definition of strategic alignment?
Strategic alignment is very, very well done. It's have you, in building the business plan, the overall plan for the company, have you thought about a people strategy and what it means? What it means to employ individuals and how you're gonna grow that aspect of the business. Not that, well, we've got a payroll system, we track time, whatever. No, no, no. Have you thought with intention that if I'm gonna grow this, I've got to make sure I have a plan around finding, attracting, retaining people? But also, how am I gonna help them feel part of the business? Is it a family? Do you want the business to feel like a family, or is it?
So the question is, the human resources person or the CEO, however you're judging it, what is the value of how much time they spend on that process?
We didn't get to the time part of it. That's actually, we do that in the overall benchmark. For this one, honestly, for the first one is, where are they spending their time? How much, in other words, you have to evaluate what time they're spending on it. If they're, for the first question, are they spending most of their time on technology, or are they actually going back and forth? Are they working on aligning with the executives? Are they talking to the executives about, hey, we see this change in the marketplace, we need to make some adaptations?
So if I can just add to that too, let's say you have an HR, do you have an HR function or is that you? Can I?
I have a part-time HR.
Okay, so HR. So when we look, is she strategically aligned? At this point, is she coming in, are we talking about only payroll, benefits, compensation? Maybe she's doing some plan strategies with you. Maybe she's encouraging you to buy some additional software to make sure that her job is easier. When she's having these conversations, are they strategically aligned with the enterprise goals of whatever that is for your organization? So is she moving towards that strategic alignment with you? If you continue to grow and she becomes full-time, would she have that seat at the table as a C-level executive with you to move her towards that, like Evelyn? I don't know if that helps.
One of the questions
Yeah.
I would have as a focus and a framework for this
Yeah.
discussion is what level size
Yes.
are the organizations? Because there's very
Right.
vast spectrum.
And that's why we're breaking out into groups. Yes, so, we have people that just do it on their own, and we get that, and then we have people that have Evelyn in a whole department. So as we go out into our groups, the reason for this is because we wanted to be mindful of not telling you what we thought you should hear, but what you actually would want to know. And so as we break out into the groups, that will be part of our discussion, right? We have Tony with Nemours. I work with their HR. They have a lot going on, and they have mission moments and things that leverage that why behind what we do. So you might be in a group with him. You can get some ideas and move that forward. But yeah, as we break out into our groups, that will be part of the discussion that your facilitators will have with you. But great point. Thank you.
And the survey, and what we're gonna do, the survey, when we're done, if anyone wants to, we can actually run you through the actual survey, through the Hackett survey. Now, that one is benchmarked on about 1,000 employee company, but they do 13,000 of them. And still what we find is, Boundary's not that big, but the metrics that come out after it, the message is you gotta focus with it. And if you're not, it's the idea of getting you intent upon your HR component with some specific, prescriptive things you can do for the company. Okay?
And then if you don't have HR, that's you. And then, we have
And
a
even
lot
then,
of.
but even if it's not, yeah, you can still focus on some things, not everything, but.
And then Evelyn was going to be a nun too, so we can have like prayer after, you know what I'm saying? If we work, so she serves two functions, right? So I want to make sure that we break out in groups that are appropriate because we have some students in the room too, which we're super pumped to hear, but not sure if we're experiencing this level of stress yet. Is that true, Justin? All right, good. So I want to make sure, so let's go ahead and break out. We'll do 1, 2, 3, we'll do
Nicole,
you.
got it?
Oh, Jeff, you want to?
Actually, all the students, I'm going to have you step back, okay? And we want you to
I'll have Jeff run.
observe from the outside. And I'm going to ask this side, we got Don, Bernie, Eric, Lee, and Daryl. That'll be 1. This group here will be 2. This group here will be 3, okay? And I guess you can handle this one. Ray, I'm going to ask you to handle this group in here, and then Mike, you're going to be here. And I actually have I have the flip charts for the best practices. They are stationed right around here, so this group can turn back to that table, and Nicole, you will facilitate that.
Okay. So in our group, I put to heart because I love these guys. But we had, a wide range of companies. Rod's organization has 10 people in it. Neil, how many employees do you guys have now? 60, right? And then David, you guys have a really senior experienced group. So we had a wide variety. So for us, we feel like as a group, the overall message was a lot of HR is spending time on compliance. And where we really want them to be spending their time is engagement and talent management, right? So we get so busy doing the things that we do, the plans that we have the best intentions and we're so excited, but we're not doing them. And so we've had a lot of 90-day reviews, right? Maybe yearly reviews, but it's not as intentional as it could be. So we talked as a group about that. As far as a strategy, we're in development. So we might have an HR strategy, but it's not consistent. And so I think as a group, we evaluated what that approach would look like. Number 4 was my company has stated goals for HR and they're aligned with the plan. We're kind of in a hybrid role, right? At Rod's company, he was telling us they led with culture. And so they hire people based on culture only, right? In Neil's environment, he described it like Titanic because Moe's, right? You only have a couple of hours before they might jump ship. So, I love the way that we approach that. So we're in a hybrid model. And then number 5, engagement, it somewhat exists. So I think just to highlight the things we talked about today, it's not to lecture at all. It's because we know that we can grow in these areas. And if we do, then we'll be the companies that are absolutely rocking. So that's it. Any questions, concerns? Snappy remarks, good jokes? No? Okay, good.
Okay, well, I think our conclusions were pretty much commensurate with any small company. They were pretty much reversed. In other words, what we would like to be doing, should be doing, are not what we are doing. A construction company, which is, I gotta make payroll on Friday, regardless. Everything else, so the mechanics of running the payroll piece of it overshadow everything else. If we flip that, everybody says, yes, we should be doing the things that are building employee engagement, that's addressing some of the things that you talked about earlier. But as far as time to do that in a small company, you are completely consumed with running the business, making payroll, cash flow, collecting the money, whatever it is, and do not have the time, although you would like to and should have time to spend on that. I think the point was also made, as you scale a company, the gentleman worked for a company that had 150 employees. Myra worked, spent some time with Universal, obviously a HR department. So as you scale your company, you have resources in which to focus on some of these other things. But I think we all agree that what you said is if we can, is to build our payroll process into the culture of our organization and meets overall needs of the employee. And in a small company, I think the best thing you can do is just ask the question, interface with your people, be the face of your company, because the dynamics of cash flow and that really override everything else that you would like to be able to do. And I think that was a consensus with the group. Anybody want to add anything to that?
Good. Thanks.
And group 3, awesome, by the way. I think my group rocked better.
Oh yeah, I feel hard though, Mike.
I've got Evelyn. I got her on that side. So ignore my handwriting. So we came up and ignore my handwriting, please. But I can summarize it pretty simply. Compliance and technology is the biggest. We had a couple construction companies. That was the biggest thing, and especially because it was just general compliance around. That is where our focus was on process and getting the system efficient. Everyone did want to focus on talent, but what we also found out is that most companies do have some sort of a structured HR strategy. Now, whether it's being followed and deployed, something else. I think what we saw was one of the instances where HR doesn't have something. And I asked the question, so how do we get HR to the table? Maybe one of the hardest things to do. So if you're an owner and you do have someone like an Evelyn or someone else, are you letting them to the table? But how would you listen to them? And I think the information came out was metrics. HR's got to come up with information and numbers and speak, and I'll put it in these terms, speak the language of the C-suite. Got to speak their language. Come at them with whatever metric you can find out. I think everyone would agree if you had an HR person or even a different leader said, I've got these metrics to back up, we need to make a change, that's going to get your attention. It's going to put an emphasis on listening and speaking the language. HR's got to learn to do that, but C-suite, we have to allow them to do that as well. And I think the last one was engagement takes time. It is something that's important, but you were talking about what you do. I mean, it's a lot of work. You go to sites, you engage, you talk to the employees, you talk to the managers, you go back with training. This stuff, engagement, which is culture, takes time, but it's worth it. Zero turnover. You haven't had turnover. Your turnover is low as well, right? In for your certain levels. At certain levels. That's rare in this group. So I would just say our message is going to be, look, even if you have a strategy, you have to go back and look at it. If you don't have a strategy, think about putting one in place, but listen to the people who are engaging your employees on a day-to-day basis.
If we want employees to know their worth, let's make it worth it,
I just have one thing, and that's, we have a discussion about younger generations and flexibility in the workplace, things like that. And compliance obviously is important, but compliance tends to be very rigid. And so how do you strike that balance between the rigidity of compliance, that everybody has to essentially be treated the same, with the flexibility of what is the expectation for the younger generations coming into our businesses?
Yeah. Does anybody in the room want to address that at all? Is anybody doing that, adding flexibility to compliance? Which I love that oxymoron, right?
Well,
compliance people, I just want to body slam you. You drive me bonkers, right? But
yeah, but I know what he's saying
Yeah.
because over the years,
please.
I've been doing this 30-something years.
Okay.
What we used to do before, like I can't even say, hey, I'll buy you lunch.
Right.
Because I'll get sued from him because I helped her. It is ludicrous of how it's changed. I mean,
So,
I've gotten sued more in the past 4 years than I have in the past 30
hey,
for stuff like that.
I think we should just do, our next line should be who got sued, right? I think we have some attorneys in here. Don't raise your hand here. Yeah. So, in our,
No, I had a comment on that.
yes, please.
We're speaking on culture just a little bit, and it's interesting. The one company, and a huge company, literally had audited based on the Sarbanes-Oxley stuff and all that stuff. They didn't record vacation time. I'm like, what do you mean you can't, you have to do that? So I looked it up. It's a company out of California. And they said, do we have to record vacation time? Well, if you give vacation, at the time they had 10 days vacation. If you give vacation, you have to record it. So he went the opposite of constraint consign, right? And because he believed the culture would respond accordingly, and they said, take as much vacation as you need. We don't have a formal vacation policy, which obviously is pretty risky, pretty uncomfortable deal at times. They found a number of vacations. You had to push employees out the door. They would grab executives and say, you have to take vacation. We want to let them know that's important. Right? So it actually reduced the amount of vacation, reduced the amount of issues. So that's an example of not, let's say, tightening compliance, but the culture better be strong enough to set that, because if you didn't have that culture, you'd have employees out for 30 days at a time, which obviously wouldn't work. So I thought I'd throw that out there.
So do you have an HR function?
I'm in.
That's you.
Okay.
And we have a formal, HR policy, company
Right.
handbook and all that great stuff, but I mean, the reality is, are you gonna treat the employees that solely just wanna come to work and get a paycheck the same as the person that's gonna go above and beyond every time and do whatever it takes to help the company grow?
Yeah.
And compliance tells you gotta treat those two the same.
Yep.
But engagement.
But engagement-wise, you
Yeah.
can't if you wanna retain the good performers.
So, and I don't know if Evelyn can speak to.
Performance, that's why you have a performance
Well,
manager
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And you reward them differently. You
Right.
reward employees differently.
So,
I
I
don't
just had.
understand the statement that you have to treat them the same.
Well, I
In
mean-
what ways do you have to treat them the same?
Just like you
Right,
said.
so you're saying,
I mean, you can't
Well, and
sexually
it's-
harass them?
No.
I mean,
no, I think the difference, right, because you're in the construction industry, right? And so there's a lot of variance in workers, in what you do, and I think it's just a different world, right? We've spent a lot of time with construction companies, so I understand where you're coming from on that, right, from the compliance piece, because we want to have this standardized approach to HR, right? There's all this litigation on the horizon. Even now with backgrounds, we can't ask about your background, we can't even ask about your salary anymore, so it's really scary. So I think if we just have two different buckets, if we have the compliance where we are, where we do have the vacation policy, but then if we associate something to an engagement program where it is based on performance and you can specifically earn things that are in that category, and we separate the buckets a little bit, they don't cross over. But you're in a role where you're doing it all. That's super hard. For me, I have 28 people in my region. I cannot handle the compliance side. I'm terrible at it, but I want to hug you and buy
Well,
you.
here's an example.
Yeah.
You have vacation days or PTO days.
Right.
And there's a defined number, and everybody gets their defined number according to their longevity. Well, let's say you have an employee that has something going on family-wise or whatever, and they're a great employee, you want to encourage them to help take care of their family.
So,
Am I gonna say, well, sorry, you took more than all your vacation days, and I'm
we
not gonna pay
document a
you?
bonus day. So at Apple One, for example, we have a personal status change form, and I would document that as a gifted bonus day. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, but is that in
Yeah.
compliance?
Yeah, yes,
Yes.
because it's documented, and
Okay.
everyone has the ability to earn a bonus day, but if you're setting smart goals with your people and you show that everyone's meeting standards and this specific person, so then when someone comes up to you and they're not meeting standards, they don't get a performance day. I was getting ready to terminate somebody last year, and I said she accused me of favoritism, and HR said you're allowed to have favorites, right? And I was like, thanks. But, so I think we're allowed to, and so if you have a standard.
And I think,
Yeah.
I think part of it is, you have to plan it out. And I think when, and I know we're running over, I think what we need
Yeah,
to do
sorry.
is just make
Sorry.
sure that the message, have a plan. And if you have a situation you don't know, that's where you really need to, if you have an extra on staff, if not, engage someone. But I think going and thinking through those options
Right.
about community, there are companies that will do community pots for PTO. In other words, you can contribute a certain percentage, someone else can use it. So, sorry, I know we've run over. One
I
more.
think my-
Just a key, we're a very
Sorry.
compliance-driven organization because we are an HR company. The key component when I got in there is to eliminate those things that people are calling compliance that are not compliance. They are simply preference. And so, because people smell that and then everything gets bad.
We can spend more time.
Yeah,
We love you. Okay.
thank you very much. We run over, I apologize. Last thing, the assessment, the Hacker Group assessment. My email going out. If you want to take it, 2 parts, 18 questions, some of it you'll need to get some numbers for. Everybody can go through it. You don't have to be a client, it doesn't have a client of mine, nothing. You have to do business with me. It's a survey that we'll do. We'll help you see where HR is aligned and then help you kind of figure out where some of your spend and other things are there. I'll send an overview as well, but
I was just coughing because it was free. No, I'm just.
I know, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
All right.
much.
All right.
Appreciate everybody's contribution.
Thank you.